You know how it is, right? You want to stay informed, understand the bigger picture, but without drowning in endless articles and news feeds.
Totally. Information overload is real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really what we try to do here. Today, we're taking a direct look at something pretty interesting. Recent staff reductions at the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA.
And the questions being raised about a possible link to, well, Elon Musk's neurotechnology company, Neuralink. Yeah, we've been looking at claims coming from a video transcript, specifically from the Ring of Fire YouTube channel.
Okay.
So our mission for you today is to really unpack what's being suggested in this transcript, explore the context around these suggestions,
Right.
and maybe consider what it all might mean for Neuralink and, that crucial role of regulatory oversight.
Okay, let's get right into it then. The YouTube transcript kicks off by discussing what it calls ongoing mass purges, strong word of government employees across various agencies.
Right.
And the FDA is mentioned as one of them. But almost immediately, the transcript flags these FDA cuts as maybe carrying more weight.
How so?
Because it claims these reductions are coming from a new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, apparently under the direction of Elon Musk.
DOGE. Okay. Interesting name choice.
Yeah. Now, the transcript does mention the administration denies Musk is directly involved in this DOGE, but the commentator in the video clearly not buying it.
Okay, so there's skepticism right off the bat, but what's the specific claim about the FDA that makes it stand out?
Well, this is the key part. The transcript alleges that among those who lost their jobs were 20 individuals.
20 specifically.
20. And they were actively, quote, working on Elon Musk's Neuralink.
Wow, okay, that level of specificity, the number 20 and the direct link to Neuralink, that definitely makes you pause.
It really does. And just to bring everyone up to speed, maybe remind folks, Neuralink is Musk's company developing that brain-computer interface, right? The chip implant.
Yeah. Correct. And the transcript does touch on some of the challenges they've faced, particularly in their animal trials. It mentions what it describes as horrible, painful deaths in primates that got these implants.
Yeah, that reporting caused quite a stir.
It did. And it was partly because of those issues, reportedly, that the FDA was taking a closer look at Neuralink.
And just as a reminder for everyone listening, the FDA is essentially the gatekeeper here.
Yeah.
They're the agency responsible for making sure medical products are safe and, effective before they can actually be sold or used.
Which really raises a critical point for us to think about. What do you make of the timing of all this?
Well, the commentator in the transcript certainly sees it as a big red flag.
Yeah.
They explicitly say, I don't think that's a coincidence.
The timing, you mean?
Yeah. The fact that you have, allegedly, 20 people specifically investigating Neuralink suddenly losing their jobs right in the middle of these broader government cuts. The suspicion, as the transcript lays it out, is that these weren't just, random layoffs. There might have been some deliberate targeting involved.
So the FDA's scrutiny and these specific firings happening around the same time, that's what makes it seem, in the words of the transcript, a little more suspicious than maybe other cuts.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's the core of the suspicion being raised.
Okay. But it's also crucial, for a balanced understanding, to point out that the transcript does present another perspective.
Right. It mentions those anonymous sources.
Yes, it mentions 2 anonymous FDA sources who apparently told USA Today that they do not believe the firings were targeted at the Neuralink investigators.
And what was their explanation then?
Their view, as reported, is that these were simply part of wider cuts, maybe initiated by someone, the transcript implies Musk, who they seem to believe doesn't really know what he's doing, just ordered widespread firings without specific targets.
So, incompetence rather than malice, essentially.
That seems to be the alternative explanation offered by those sources. So what we're seeing here is this kind of tension, isn't it, between a public perception of potential influence and these internal accounts suggesting broader, maybe less strategic changes. The key takeaway isn't necessarily who ordered the cuts, perhaps, but the perception of compromised oversight this whole situation creates.
Yeah, and the commentator in the video transcript really struggles with that alternative. They actually say, I wish I could believe them. I wish I had that kind of naivety.
So highly skeptical of the just coincidence line.
Very much so. They find it really hard to accept that dismissing nearly 24 people focused specifically on the safety of Neuralink's brain implant was just, bad luck or incompetence.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture for our listeners,
Yeah.
we need to think about the potential implications for Neuralink itself.
No.
The transcript correctly points out that Neuralink absolutely requires FDA approval to bring its product to market. That's a fundamental step, right? Non-negotiable for this kind of medical device.
Absolutely.
And the FDA's concerns, presumably, stem from specific data points in those animal trials. They'd be looking at things like biocompatibility, the longevity of the implant, how well it actually works.
All the standard safety and efficacy stuff.
Exactly. Standard but incredibly detailed review, especially for something this novel.
Right. And the argument made in the transcript is pretty direct. If you remove the very people who were involved in scrutinizing and potentially approving your product, well, you're essentially creating a huge hurdle for yourself.
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Totally. The commentator suggests this could delay Neuralink's launch by, quote, potentially years. There's even a bit of sarcasm, calling it not the smartest idea. So we've looked at the initial claims, the suspicion they raise. Now let's think a bit more about what the real-world impact of these alleged firings could actually be for Neuralink's journey through that whole regulatory process.
Yeah, this situation really highlights a fundamental challenge, I think, in regulating these fast-moving tech industries. How do you ensure rigorous oversight without just stifling innovation, especially when you have really powerful players involved?
It's a tough balance.
It is. And that brings us to an interesting point raised in the transcript, which kind of delves into the motivations behind these alleged firings. It moves beyond just incompetence to maybe a more strategic, albeit pretty cynical perspective.
Okay, what's that?
Well, the transcript moves into the commentator's personal opinions and speculation here. They state their personal belief that the firings of those Neuralink-focused FDA employees were absolutely not a coincidence.
Okay, no surprise there based on what he said earlier.
But what's interesting here is the commentator's rather cynical hypothetical scenario.
Go on.
They suggest that if Musk were truly strategic, maybe he should have actually kept the FDA employees working on Neuralink.
Kept them. Why?
The cynical logic being maybe those individuals might be more inclined to approve the product just to secure their own jobs, knowing cuts are happening elsewhere.
Wow, okay. That's dark.
Yeah. The transcript itself labels this idea corrupt as hell. But it's important for listeners to remember, this is the commentator speculating, right? Not a confirmed fact or strategy.
Absolutely. Pure speculation presented as such.
Exactly. And the transcript also includes some rather strong commentary on the commentator's personal opinion of Musk's intelligence.
Oh, right. I remember reading that.
Yeah, including that memorable line about having a below room temperature IQ.
Ouch.
Again, clearly presented as personal opinion from the YouTube commentator. It just underscores the strong feelings, maybe potential biases present in the source material we're looking at.
Which is important context. We need to report those opinions to give the full picture of the transcript.
Definitely.
But also be super clear to distinguish them from, verifiable facts.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so moving beyond Neuralink specifically for a moment, the transcript touches on potentially broader implications too. The commentator expresses concern about possible repercussions for anyone within government agencies who might be investigating matters related to Elon Musk.
Like a chilling effect.
Potentially. They even mention inspectors general as another example. People whose job it is to investigate waste, fraud, abuse, suggesting they might face job insecurity if their work involves scrutinizing Musk's ventures.
That's a serious concern. Think of it like this, right? If the people responsible for checking the safety of a new car before it's sold are suddenly removed, you might end up with more cars on the road that have dangerous flaws. It's a similar principle with medical devices that independent oversight is absolutely crucial for protecting public health.
No question.
So this speaks to a larger worry, doesn't it, about the independence and, frankly, the effectiveness of government oversight when powerful individuals or big corporations are involved.
Yeah, if there's even a perception that investigating certain people could put your career at risk.
Exactly. It could have a chilling effect on accountability. It could potentially compromise the integrity of regulatory processes across all sorts of sectors, not just medical devices.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together for everyone listening. This deep dive into the YouTube transcript really highlights one central question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Is there a genuine connection between these reported staff reductions at the FDA and the agency's scrutiny of Elon Musk's Neuralink?
And the transcript, as we've discussed, really presents two main perspectives on that.
On one side, You've got the suspicion. It's largely fueled by the timing and the specific focus, those 20 alleged employees suggesting these were targeted cuts meant to remove the people overseeing Neuralink.
Mm-hmm. Target interference.
And then on the other side, you have the explanation from those anonymous FDA sources suggesting, no, this was just part of broader, maybe clumsy but not targeted firings within the government.
Right. Bureaucracy or incompetence, not conspiracy.
Exactly. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to consider.
Go on.
Given the inherently complex regulatory world surrounding innovative technologies, especially in super-sensitive fields like neurotechnology.
Yeah, brain implants are definitely sensitive.
For sure. And considering how fundamentally important it is to maintain independent oversight, to ensure both safety and ethical issues are thoroughly addressed, what could be the potential long-term consequences if allegations like these suggesting a possible undermining of that crucial oversight were actually proven true?
That's a heavy question. It really gets to the heart of trust in both innovation and regulation.
It does. And it's definitely something to keep in mind as these kinds of stories around tech regulation and powerful figures continue to unfold.